Dr. Lisa Rodriguez never believed in fairy tales. As Earth's top space archaeologist, she had spent 20 years digging through alien ruins on distant planets. She had seen amazing things, but she always kept her feet on the ground. That's why. What happened on planet Zerion 7 changed everything she thought she knew about the universe. The dig site looked ordinary enough. Ancient stone buildings covered in strange symbols, just like dozens of other sites she had explored. But when her team activated the crystal data storage system they found buried deep underground, something incredible happened. The room filled with blue light, and suddenly they were watching holographic movies from thousands of years ago. At first, Lisa thought she was seeing things. The alien recordings showed battles between massive spaceships, planets being destroyed, and civilizations falling one by one. But then she saw something that made her heart stop. Right there, in the middle of an alien war, was a human being. Not just any human either. This person was fighting alongside creatures that looked nothing like anything from Earth. He moved like lightning, carried weapons that glow with their own light, and somehow seemed to be everywhere at once during the battle. The alien narrators called him the Guardian from the Blue World and spoke about him with something that sounded like religious respect. Lisa played the recordings over and over again. Each time, she noticed new details that seemed impossible. The human warrior appeared to be the same age in recordings that were made hundreds of years apart. In one scene, he was helping evacuate an entire planet before it exploded. In another, he was teaching alien children how to defend themselves. In a third, he was standing alone against what looked like a mechanical army. And winning. The most shocking discovery came when Lisa found the personal logs of an alien commander named Vex 9. The commander described meeting the human warrior face to face during something called the Great Silence War. According to Vex 9, the human had appeared out of nowhere when their entire fleet was about to be destroyed. He spoke perfect Zerion language, knew their battle tactics, and seemed to understand their technology better than they did. But here's the part that made Lisa's hands shake as she read it. Vex 9 wrote that when he asked the human how he had learned so much about their people, the warrior smiled and said, "I've been protecting civilizations across this galaxy for 3,000 years. Time moves differently when you're carrying this kind of responsibility. 3,000 years. That would put his first appearance sometime during Earth's ancient history, long before humans had even dreamed of traveling to other planets." According to everything Lisa knew about science and history, it was completely impossible. Humans barely had metal tools 3,000 years ago, let alone spaceships. Yet the evidence kept piling up. She found star charts marking the humans' appearances across 17 different star systems. She discovered alien artwork showing him in battles that had saved entire species from extinction. Most incredible of all, she found medical scans taken by alien doctors who had treated him after particularly difficult fights. The scan showed something that made Lisa call an emergency meeting with her research team. The human's body wasn't entirely human anymore. His bones were denser than titanium. His blood carried oxygen more efficiently than any known biological system. His brain showed activity patterns that suggested he could process information at superhuman speeds. Whatever had happened to transform him into this legendary figure had changed him at the most basic level. Lisa's assistant, Dr. Raj Patel, was the first to voice what everyone was thinking. If this is real, if there really is a human out there who has been protecting alien civilizations for thousands of years, then we need to find him. The galaxy might need him again. But Lisa had found something else in the records, something that worried her deeply. The most recent entries, dated just 50 years ago, showed the warrior engaging in what the aliens call the final battle. After that, there were no more sightings, no more reports, nothing. It was as if he had simply vanished from the galaxy entirely. The implications were staggering. If the legendary human warrior was real, it meant that Earth's history was incomplete. Somewhere in humanity's past, one of their own had been chosen or transformed into something far beyond human limits. He had become a protector not just of Earth, but of innocent life throughout the universe. as Lisa prepared her report for the Galactic Science Council. She couldn't shake the feeling that this discovery was more than just historical curiosity. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and it was getting more dangerous all the time. New threats were emerging from unexplored regions of space. Ancient enemies were waking up from long sleeps. And somewhere out there, the legendary human warrior might be the only thing standing between civilization and complete destruction. But first, they had to find him, and based on what Lisa had learned from the alien records, that was going to be the hardest part of all. Because according to the final entries in the database, the legendary human warrior hadn't just disappeared. He had been imprisoned by the very people he had spent 3,000 years protecting. And the reasons why were locked away in secrets that might be too dangerous for anyone to uncover. Queen Arya had ruled the Zendorian Empire for over 2,000 years, but she still remembered the bedtime stories her grandmother used to tell her back then. She thought they were just fairy tales meant to help a young princess fall asleep. She never imagined that one day, those childhood stories would become the most important historical documents in the galaxy. The news reached her royal palace on a quiet Tuesday morning. Her communications officer rushed into the throne room with a message that made her heart skip several beats. Dr. Lisa Rodriguez had found proof that the legendary human warrior was real. After all these centuries, someone had finally discovered evidence of the being her grandmother called the Guardian of Light. Queen Arya's hands began to tremble. As she read the report, every detail matched perfectly with the stories she had heard as a child. The warrior who appeared from nowhere during impossible battles. The human who could speak any alien language fluently. The protector who never aged and never gave up, no matter how hopeless things seemed. She immediately ordered her royal guards to seal off the ancient archives deep beneath the palace. These archives hadn't been opened in over 1,000 years, but Queen Arya knew exactly what she would find there. Her grandmother had made her promise to protect certain records, saying that someday the galaxy would need proof of what really happened during the darkest period in their history. The journey to the archives took her through tunnels carved from solid crystal, past chambers filled with artifacts from civilizations that no longer existed. At the very bottom, behind doors that required her royal DNA to open, lay the most precious secrets of her people, and there, in a vault made from materials that could survive the destruction of stars, were her grandmother's personal recordings. Queen Arya activated the first crystal with shaking fingers. Suddenly, the vault filled with the image of her grandmother, Queen Lydia, exactly as she remembered her from childhood. But this wasn't a happy memory. Her grandmother's face showed fear, exhaustion, and something else that took Queen Arya a moment to recognize. It was hope. "My dear granddaughter," the recording began. "If you are watching this, then the time has come to reveal the truth about the Great Darkness War. What our history books describe as a victory won through courage and determination was actually something far more miraculous. We survived because of a human being who sacrificed everything to save people he had never met before." The recording showed Queen Arya things that had been classified for 2 millennia. She watched in amazement as her grandmother described the day their entire solar system was about to be consumed by creatures that fed on the life force of planets. The Zendorian military had tried everything. Their most advanced weapons couldn't even slow down the invaders. Billions of people were preparing to die. Then, according to her grandmother's testimony, reality itself seemed to tear open like fabric. A human warrior stepped through the opening, looked around at the destruction, and said something that Queen Lydia would never forget. "Don't worry. I've dealt with these things before. Just get your people to safety and let me handle this." What happened next defied every law of physics the Zendorians understood. The human warrior fought the planet's eating creatures using abilities that seemed to bend space and time itself. He moved faster than their fastest ships. His weapons could cut through materials that were supposed to be indestructible. Most incredibly, he seemed to know exactly what the creatures were going to do before they did it. The battle lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. Queen Lydia's recordings showed the human warrior fighting without rest, without food, Without any support from the Zendorian military, every time it looked like he might be overwhelmed. He found some new way to turn the situation around. When the creatures tried to retreat, he followed them into deep space to make sure they could never threaten anyone again. But Queen Arya's grandmother had recorded something else. Something that made the current queen's eyes fill with tears. After the battle was over, after the celebrations had ended, the human warrior had asked for a private meeting with Queen Lydia. He looked exhausted in a way that went beyond physical tiredness. "Your Majesty," he had said, "I need you to understand something important. I'm not here by choice. I was selected for this role by forces I don't fully understand, and I can't control when or where I appear. Sometimes I arrive just in time to help, sometimes I'm too late, but I will always keep trying, because giving up isn't an option when innocent lives are at stake." Queen Lydia had asked him how long he had been carrying this responsibility. His answer changed everything she thought she knew about the universe. "I lost count after the first 1,000 years, he had said. "Time moves differently when you're traveling between dimensions to fight cosmic threats. But I know I started this journey sometime, during what your records would call Earth's ancient period." The most shocking revelation came in the final recording. Queen Lydia explained that the human warrior had warned her about something terrible that was coming. He couldn't say when, but he knew that the creatures he had just defeated were only scouts for something much worse. The real threat was still out there, growing stronger, waiting for the right moment to strike. He told me, Queen Lydia's recording continued, that when the time comes, when the galaxy faces its greatest challenge, he might not be able to help. The other civilizations he has saved are starting to fear his power. They think he's becoming too dangerous to exist. Some are already planning to contain him, to lock him away where he can't interfere with their affairs. Queen Arya felt a chill run down her spine. Her grandmother's final words in the recording were prophetic. If anyone ever finds proof that the human warrior exists, if the galaxy starts looking for him again, it will mean that the real threat is finally approaching, and we will need to decide whether to free our greatest protector or leave him imprisoned by those who have forgotten what he sacrificed for all of us. As the recording ended, Queen Arya realized that her childhood fairy tales were actually warnings. The legendary human warrior was real. He was probably imprisoned somewhere in the galaxy. And based on the recent surge in unexplained cosmic activity, the greatest threat in galactic history was about to begin. In a place that existed between reality and dreams, between space and time, David Cross felt the universe shifting around him. For 3,000 years, he had been trapped in this dimensional prison, and every single day felt both endless and instant at the same time. He could sense when people across the galaxy were talking about him, searching for him, remembering the stories of what he used to do. The prison wasn't made of metal bars or concrete walls. Instead, it was built from pure energy that kept him suspended in a bubble outside normal space. He could see the stars moving in fast motion through the transparent walls, watching entire civilizations rise and fall while he remained frozen in this impossible place. Sometimes he wondered if he was going crazy, but then he would remember why he was here and find the strength to keep going. David had never planned to become a legendary warrior. 3,000 years ago, he was just a regular soldier in the Roman army, fighting battles that seemed important at the time, but were nothing compared to what was coming. Everything changed the night he was on guard duty and saw a strange light falling from the sky, like a shooting star. When he went to investigate, he found something that looked like a crystal the size of a house, glowing with colors that didn't exist in nature. As he got closer, he heard a voice in his head that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The voice belonged to something called the Arbiter, a cosmic being that had been watching Earth for thousands of years. "David Cross," the voice said, "your species will soon spread across the stars, but the universe is full of dangers that could destroy them before they have a chance to grow. I need someone to serve as their guardian, to protect not just humans, but all innocent life in the galaxy. The job will cost you everything you are, but it will give you the power to save billions of lives." David had laughed at first, thinking he was having some kind of fever dream, But then the Arbiter showed him visions of the future. He saw Earth's children traveling to distant planets, making friends with alien species, building a civilization that spanned entire star systems. He also saw the threats that were waiting for them in the darkness between worlds. The choice seemed easy at the time. Give up his normal life to become something greater, something that could make a real difference in the universe. He said yes without really understanding what he was agreeing to. The moment the words left his mouth, everything changed. The transformation was unlike anything human language could describe. David felt his body becoming stronger, faster, more resilient than any normal person could be. His mind expanded to hold knowledge about technologies that wouldn't be invented for centuries. Most importantly, he gained the ability to travel instantly between dimensions, appearing wherever innocent people needed protection most. For the first 1,000 years, David loved his new role. He saved planets from destruction, stopped wars before they could start, and helped different species learn to live together in peace. He became known throughout the galaxy as the Guardian, the Protector, the one being that would always show up when hope seemed lost. But power like his came with a price that David hadn't anticipated. Every time he used his abilities, he became a little less human and a little more something else. He stopped aging, stopped needing food or sleep, stopped feeling connected to the normal world. Worst of all, he began to realize that his very existence was changing reality around him in ways he couldn't control. The breaking point came during what historians would later call the reality war. David was fighting against creatures that could literally erase things from existence when he lost control of his powers for just a few seconds. In that brief moment, he accidentally destroyed an entire moon that had millions of innocent people living on it. He had become so powerful that his emotions could reshape the universe, and that made him more dangerous than any enemy he had ever fought. That's when the civilizations he had spent centuries protecting made the hardest decision in Galacti. See history. They couldn't destroy him because he was the only thing standing between them and cosmic threats they couldn't handle alone. But they also couldn't let him roam free when his very presence could accidentally cause the destruction he was trying to prevent. So they built this prison, this place outside of normal space and time where David could exist without affecting reality. The prison was designed to be both a cage and a sanctuary, somewhere he could meditate and learn to control his abilities without putting anyone at risk. The alien scientists who created it promised that someday, when he had mastered his powers completely, they would set him free. 3,000 years had passed since then, and David had indeed learned control. He could now manipulate his abilities with precision that would have seemed impossible during his early days as a guardian. But he had also learned something else during his long imprisonment. The universe was preparing for a threat so terrible that even his controlled power might not be enough to stop it. Through the walls of his dimensional prison, David could sense something stirring in the dark spaces between galaxies. Ancient entities that had been sleeping since the universe was young were beginning to wake up. They were hungry, patient, and completely committed to consuming every trace of life they could find. The people searching for him now, Dr. Lisa Rodriguez and Queen Aria, had no idea what they were really unleashing. David's freedom wouldn't just bring hope back to the galaxy. It would also signal to these cosmic predators that the final battle was about to begin. And this time, even the legendary human warrior wasn't sure if he could win. Dr. Lisa Rodriguez never expected that her archaeological discovery would turn the entire galaxy into a political battlefield. Within just 2 weeks of releasing her findings about the legendary human warrior, her research station had become the most heavily guarded location in known space. Ships from dozens of different alien civilizations were arriving daily, all demanding access to her data about David Cross. The situation was getting more dangerous by the hour. Lisa found herself trapped in the middle of arguments between species that had been enemies for centuries. The Zendorians, led by Queen Aria, insisted that David should be freed immediately. They claimed that the galaxy needed its greatest protector back, especially with all the strange cosmic disturbances that had been happening lately. But other civilizations weren't so sure. The Krylon Council, a group of highly advanced beings, who controlled 3 entire star systems, argued that David was too dangerous to release. Their representatives showed up at Lisa's station with detailed files about the reality war, complete with images of the destroyed moon that David had accidentally erased from existence. "You don't understand what you're dealing with, Council," Leader Vex Prime told Lisa during one particularly heated meeting. "We were there 3,000 years ago when David Cross lost control. We watched him accidentally destroy billions of innocent lives in a single moment of emotional instability. His power has only grown since then. If we free him now, who's to say he won't make an even bigger mistake?" Lisa tried to stay neutral, but it was becoming impossible. Every day brought new factions to her research station. Some wanted to study David like a laboratory specimen. Others wanted to worship him as a god. A few darker groups seemed interested in finding ways to steal his power for themselves. The most disturbing visitors were the ones who claimed to represent something called the Shadow Collective. They never showed their faces, communicated only through holographic projections, and spoke in voices that seemed to come from several people at once. Their message was always the same: David Cross must remain in prison, no matter what threats the galaxy might face. The universe has survived for billions of years without depending on one being for protection, their spokesperson had said during a secret meeting with Lisa. Natural selection applies to civilizations just like it applies to individual creatures. If a species can't defend itself, perhaps it doesn't deserve to survive. But Lisa was starting to realize that the Shadow Collective might not be what they seemed. Her assistant, Dr. Raj Patel, had been monitoring deep space communications and discovered something terrifying. The same energy signatures that appeared whenever the Shadow Collective contacted them were also showing up in reports from the edges of known space, where entire star systems had recently gone dark. "Lisa, I think we're being manipulated," Raj whispered to her one night as they reviewed the data in secret. "These Shadow Collective people aren't trying to protect the galaxy from David. They're trying to make sure he stays locked up while something else takes over." The evidence was mounting daily. Automated observation posts throughout the galaxy were detecting massive objects moving in the empty space between star systems. The objects were too big to be natural and too advanced to belong to any known civilization. Worse yet, every system that had been investigated by scouts had gone completely silent afterward. Queen Arya arrived at the research station personally, bringing with her a fleet of ships that could flatten mountains. But she didn't come to threaten anyone. Instead, she called for an emergency meeting of all the factions that had gathered around Lisa's discovery. "My friends," the Queen said, addressing representatives from over 50 different species, "while we've been arguing about whether to free David Cross, our real enemies have been preparing for conquest. Look at your star charts. Count how many systems have gone dark in the past month. Ask yourselves why the Shadow Collective is so eager to keep our greatest defender imprisoned." The room erupted in chaos as different groups began shouting at each other in dozens of languages. But Lisa noticed something that made her blood run cold. The Shadow Collective representatives weren't participating in the argument. Instead, they were watching everything with what looked like satisfaction, as if the chaos was exactly what they had been hoping for. That night, Lisa made a decision that would change galactic history. She secretly contacted Queen Arya and shared her most classified discovery, hidden in the deepest layers of the Zirian 7 data archives. She had found something that no one else knew about. David Cross had left behind detailed instructions for his own release, including the location of his dimensional prison and the specific ritual needed to open it. But there's something else, Lisa told the Queen during their private meeting. David's instructions include a warning. He says that his release should only be attempted if the galaxy faces a threat that could destroy all civilized life. He specifically mentions entities called the Void Devourers, ancient beings that consume entire dimensions. Queen Arya's face went pale. "The Void Devourers," she whispered. "My grandmother mentioned them in her recordings. She said David had fought them before in other galaxies and that they always came back stronger." As if summoned by their conversation, alarms began blaring throughout the research station. The long-range sensors had detected something approaching. From the direction of the galactic core, it was massive, moving faster than should have been possible and leaving a trail of dead space behind it. The Shadow Collective's true nature was finally revealed when their ships suddenly turned their weapons on everyone else. They weren't representatives of concerned civilizations trying to maintain galactic stability. They were advanced scouts for the Void Devourers, beings whose job was to keep the galaxy's greatest defender locked away while their masters prepared for the final feast. Lisa realized that the legendary human warrior hadn't been imprisoned to protect the galaxy from his power. He had been imprisoned to leave the galaxy defenseless when its greatest enemies finally returned. The ritual to free David Cross required something that Queen Arya had never done before. In her 2,000 years of life, she had to trust completely in the wisdom of her grandmother and the research of a human scientist she had met only weeks ago. As her royal fleet surrounded the coordinates Lisa had discovered in the ancient archives, the Queen felt the weight of galactic history pressing down on her shoulders. Lisa watched from the bridge of her research vessel as Queen Arya's ships arranged themselves in the precise pattern that David's instructions had specified. The dimensional prison was invisible to normal sensors, existing in a space between realities that could only be accessed through a combination of advanced technology and what the ancient texts call pure intention. "Are you sure about this?" Dr. Raj asked Lisa as they prepared to begin the release sequence. "Once we start this process, there's no going back. If David has become something dangerous during his imprisonment, we might be dooming the very civilizations we're trying to save." Lisa looked out at the stars, many of which had gone dark in recent days as the Void Devourers continued their advance toward the galactic core. "Raj, look around us. Half the galaxy is already gone. The Shadow Collective's ships are hunting down anyone who might oppose them. If we don't try this, there won't be any civilizations left to save." Queen Arya's voice crackled over the communication system as her ships began generating the energy field needed to pierce dimensional barriers. "Dr. Rodriguez, we're detecting massive distortions in space-time. Whatever David Cross has become during his imprisonment, he's definitely still in there." The ritual took 3 hours to complete. As the energy field reached its peak intensity, reality itself seemed to bend and twist around the invisible prison. Stars changed color in the background. Gravity fluctuated wildly, making everyone on the ships feel like they were falling and floating at the same time. Then, suddenly, everything went perfectly still. A crack appeared in empty space, glowing with light that hurt to look at directly. The crack grew wider and wider until it became an opening large enough for a person to step through. And that's exactly what happened next. David Cross emerged from his dimensional prison looking exactly like the ancient recordings had shown him, but somehow more real than any normal person. He seemed to be made of starlight and determination, moving with grace that defied physics. When he spoke, his voice carried across space without any communication equipment, reaching every ship in the fleet simultaneously. "Thank you," he said, and Lisa could hear 3,000 years of loneliness and gratitude in those simple words. "I felt your search for me across the dimensions. I sensed the love and courage that drove you to free me despite the risks. But I also know why you really need me back," as if summoned by his words. The space around them suddenly filled with something that made everyone's worst nightmares seem pleasant by comparison. The Void Devourers had finally arrived, and they were nothing like any threat the galaxy had ever faced before. They weren't ships or creatures in any sense that living beings could understand. Instead, they were holes in reality itself, spaces where existence simply stopped working. Wherever they moved, stars went out, planets dissolved into nothing, and even the laws of physics seemed to forget how to function properly. "Everyone get back," David said calmly, but his voice now carried an authority that made entire fleets obey without question. "I've fought these things in 17 different galaxies over the past 3,000 years. They're not evil in the way you understand evil. They're just hungry, and they eat reality itself." What happened next was a battle that Lisa knew would be talked about for millions of years, assuming anyone survived to tell the story. David didn't use weapons or ships or any kind of technology. Instead, he fought the Void Devourers using pure will, reshaping the fundamental forces of creation to match their power. The battle lasted for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. David moved through space like he was swimming through water, creating new stars to replace the ones being consumed, rebuilding entire sections of reality that the Void Devourers had erased. Every time it looked like he might be overwhelmed, he found some new way to turn their own power against them. But Lisa could see that the fight was taking a terrible toll on him. Each time David used his abilities, he became a little less human and a little more like a force of nature. She realized that this was probably what had happened 3,000 years ago, when he accidentally destroyed that moon. The more he fought cosmic threats, the harder it became for him to remain connected to the small, personal things that made life worth protecting. The turning point came when David did something that no one expected. Instead of trying to destroy the Void Devourers, he began communicating with them. Lisa watched in amazement as he somehow reached across the gap between existence and non-existence to have a conversation with beings that ate reality for breakfast. "You don't have to do this," David said to them, his words somehow carrying meaning to creatures that existed outside normal space and time. "I know you're hungry. I know you've been sleeping for billions of years and woke up to find the universe changed, but consuming everything won't fill the emptiness inside you. It will just make you more alone than you already are." The Void Devourers paused in their advance, as if considering his words. For a moment, Lisa dared to hope that maybe, just maybe, this cosmic horror could end without the destruction of everything she had ever known. David's final offer to the Void Devourers was something that only someone who had spent 3,000 years protecting others could have thought of. "I'll make you a deal," he said. "I'll help you find what you're really looking for. But in exchange, you have to promise to leave all the civilizations in this galaxy alone. They're not your enemy. They're just trying to live their lives and build something beautiful in a universe that's often cruel and dark." When the Void Devourers finally departed, taking David with them on a journey to find answers that existed beyond the edge of known reality, Lisa realized that the legendary human warrior had done more than save the galaxy. He had reminded everyone that even the most terrifying enemies might just be lonely beings looking for their place. In an impossibly vast universe, the galaxy was safe, the legend lived on, and somewhere among the stars, David Cross continued his eternal mission to protect innocent life wherever it might be found.